What's up, podcast? I want to thank you for tuning in to the first ever episode of Married to My Writing. My name is Jasmin Wonders. I am one of your hosts, along with RJ Rome. I'm so excited to have been able to sit down with RJ and record this first episode. It was a long time coming. We touch on topics that we've never actually discussed before, even though we speak often. So if you enjoy the podcast, subscribe and leave us a comment on social letting us know what you thought. Now, to the episode. Have you been able to write during this time?
I have been writing, probably not as much as I was hoping that I would be able to write, but the stuff that I am writing, I think, is quality stuff, so I think that's what's important.
Interesting. How do you balance all of that? Work, family, writing, all of that?
It's definitely a struggle. It's not easy, and unfortunately, writing kind of bears the brunt of that because it is kind of my hobby. So obviously my kids and my husband have to come first, and obviously I have to work to pay the bills. So at the end of the day, whatever time left is for writing, and I wish it was different, but I'm always thinking during the day anyway of what I'm writing, and sometimes during the day I will get to jot down ideas or type some stuff up. So it's not a complete, it's pushed to the wayside kind of thing, but it is difficult to manage and get everything done.
Where do you find this extra time? Because I would imagine, having the kids there with you, they always want your attention. You said
they definitely do, but I think especially my older child, she gets it now a little bit more, and I've seen her taking an interest in wanting to write things. Okay. So hopefully I'm inspiring her to take on a hobby like I did.
Right. During this time, do you think you get more ideas for writing, or you just stick to what you've already been working on?
Well, it's kind of funny that you say that, because the last couple of days, the story I had come up with, or the idea for a story I had come up with a while back, has been just nonstop in my mind. And I even woke up this morning thinking about it. So yeah, I don't know if it's because of being home more and having opportunity to think more. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's supposed to happen now kind of thing.
Do you think you'll be able to sit down and actually get to write these ideas out?
I wrote down a little bit yesterday. I don't believe in plotting out a whole story, but I did write down yesterday a little bit of kind of what I want to happen, beginning, middle, and end. Right. I don't really know where the end winds up. That was kind of the hard part for me to jot down, but I just didn't want to lose the ideas that are coming to me, and I'm kind of writing something else right now, so I don't really want to stop.
Right. So I'm not going to ask the question how you got into writing, but I am going to give a variation of that. I know the part I played in that, but I want to know, it wasn't that difficult to get you to start, so I want to know what it was that made you think okay, this is a great idea, let me try.
Well, after the role you played in it, you were pretty much the reason. I thought back, because I fought with myself over whether I could actually write something, because I'm a reader. I love reading. Mm-hmm. And I can just binge read for hours and hours. And when I thought, could I do that? I fought with myself because I didn't think I could. Mm-hmm. But then I thought back to when I was in college, and my favorite classes, they were always the literature classes and creative writing classes.
Right.
And if somebody had said to me then, you should be doing this, or you're good at this, I think it would have completely changed my perspective on a career, and I probably would have started a lot sooner. But then when I was going through college, nobody thought you could make a living on self-publishing and writing.
I agree with that, because I started with English and I was like, oh, I like to write, I'm going to do this. And then everybody was like, well, how do you make money? It was kind of like art back then. It was like, oh yeah, I do graphic design. And people were like, well, how do you make money off of that?
Exactly.
But now it's so big.
If I had come home and told my parents I was going to major in English, it would have been a funny conversation.
Yeah. I mean, see, I told my parents, but it came off as like, oh, yeah, I'm going to start with just English and then I'm going to go into teaching. And they were like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's a sensible career, you know?
Yeah, see, I knew I didn't want to be a teacher. So
I think
that
I
would
was
have
going
just,
to try to do it, and see if it worked for me. Because people were like, oh, you're so good with kids. Because I did a lot of camps and, for sports and helped coach a little bit, and kids were drawn to me. So everybody's like, you're going to be so great with kids. Like, this is perfect for you teaching. But, after speaking to people who do it, I'm like, I'm glad I didn't. Let's talk about fame for a second.
that's my story. I love that story.
What was the inspiration behind the story?
Well, I grew up in the 90s when boy bands were obviously very, very popular. And I wasn't really so much into the boy band, but I do have a favorite band, which I'm not going to say because I always get relentless torture for saying it. But obviously, that was a big part of my life and liking their music. And over the years, I've had a recurring dream about a pop star and a rock star. And it wasn't until January 2019 that I just woke up and I just was like, I have to write this story down. This would be a great story. And again, it was the same thing. Like, I just woke up from a dream and I started writing furiously. It kind of just came together. And I wrote the whole book in like 2.5 months.
Pretty quick, actually. Well, maybe not for some people, but definitely for me.
For somebody with kids, 2 kids and a husband, I think that it was pretty quick.
Right. Now, you chose the route of self-publishing, right? I would assume that's maybe in some people's eyes the harder route. What made you go that way?
2018 was a hard year for me. I was working on another story, and when you put yourself into these stories, it takes, it's part of your soul. So when you hear bad feedback, it's heart-wrenching.
For sure.
Because, you're getting feedback from a lot of different outlets, and people are telling you it's good. Some people are telling you, it needs work. But when you hear from like a professional that your story doesn't make any sense, it doesn't make sense to you maybe, but it makes sense to me. And I didn't want to be in a position where I couldn't write what I wanted to write. And writing what comes from my heart, what feels right to me, is important.
Right.
And I just didn't want to have to change for a publisher or an editor. And that story still hasn't been released because I decided I was going to scrap it, put it on the back burner, and work on it when I had a clear mind.
Right.
But when I looked into self-publishing, it just seemed so daunting that even that scared me away. But then, like I said, fame came, and I was like, I'm going to do this. I don't want any professional opinion. And it's a really hard road to learn self-publishing because so many other people are doing it.
Right. Was it what you thought it would be, or?
Not at all.
Okay.
I have to tell you, like, you think that because there's so many other indie authors out there that they don't want to help you and they will just tear you up. And I'm sure that I will come across that at some point. But so far, my journey, like especially on Instagram and Twitter and meeting all these other indie authors, they're welcoming, they're helpful, and I've been in the position where I've asked questions and they actually like give you good help and advice.
Right.
And I really hope that continues because we're taking over the publishing industry.
I think that's the goal.
It definitely probably makes some people think.
Right. How has social media, because I know you and I were never really into it that much, but now I see how you've transitioned with that a little bit. How has, meeting or speaking to some of these people helped?
It's still a struggle for me. It's honestly a chore because I'm very shy.
Right.
So to put myself out there, I've definitely grown with it, but I'm not fully there yet.
Right.
It's definitely difficult, and I see what other people are doing, and I'm like, oh, that's such a good idea. Why didn't I think of that? But like I said, I'm a little standoffish with the social media because it's not something that I do in my personal life. So it's hard to do it for my writer side.
Right.